Oh snap, a new Marvel Snap meta is here, and after the first 12 hours, we're looking at the data from Untapped. In today's video though, not only are we looking at the data, I'm also going to be showing you my favorite version of each of the top decks. Give the video a like if it's helpful. I've got 3 decks featured by some of the best deck builders in Marvel Snap, so these decks are going to be of the very highest quality. Sera Control starting off as the top don. Now, let's bear in mind, 12 hours into a meta just means that this is when people are testing all the new things, the new shiny things. So lots of people are going to be playing Enchantress. There's still going to be a lot of people playing the leftover decks from last season like Patriot. And there's going to be less people playing decks which just got nerfed. Sandman, Electro being a big example of that. In fact, we have to go a really long way down in the meta report and the tier list to see Electro ramp at just a 51.7% win rate. That is a pretty low, 4.2% popularity, maybe not as low as I expected. I would expect Electro ramp to make a bit of a comeback. It only lost 2 points. Patriot was one of the biggest counters to Electro, and Patriot is getting countered very hard by the very juicy, saucy Enchantress, which is going to be significantly more popular. So let's look at Sera Control, 54% win rate with a popularity of 5.8%. Now, there's a lot to discuss with Sera Control because there's so many different ways of building it. We're going to start off with what I would consider to be the best list going into last season without Enchantress. This was very much focusing around Bast, buffing up a bunch of your cards. Cards like the Hood, Hitmonkey, and Angela can get +3 or +5 on. Mysterio gets +5 with Bast. So the Bast in this deck was absolutely phenomenal. And of course, Rogue fit that slot to deal with decks like Patriot, if you would so wish. However, with the Enchantress buff, obviously, Enchantress and Bast have a lot of anti-synergy. So while this deck is still absolutely solid, there's also a completely different route you can go with Sera Control. Which deck is better? It remains to be seen. But this deck I'm sharing is by my good friend Dera, who got 80% win rate over 40 games with the Sera deck, which is absolutely an obscene win rate on patch day. I tried something similar. The idea is using Zabu to reduce the cost of your Shang-Chi and your Enchantress, and then Shanna, the newly buffed card, also just seems like she is worth it. I was also playing her and quite impressed. She's got a 4 body and she's playing 3 1-drops, 1 drop into each location. If you just hit 1 point off of each of those 1-drops, she's 7 points for 4. And of course, you've got that Zabu cost reduction in here. I really like the idea of this one. You've got Storm in there as well. Storm, of course, your Shanna can sneak points in there later. Your Killmonger can destroy your opponent's 1-drops. Your Nova can buff stuff up. And the Lizard and Bishop are also going to be particularly good with the Nova. The other thing you can do with Storm is you can play Mysterio and Hitmonkey on turn number 4 for 10 stats across the board, which is pretty impressive. Your Hitmonkey is going to be 6 points, your Mysterio 4. This looks like a very spicy deck. 80% win rate is absolutely obscene. However, if a deck like this is as popular as it looks like it will be, I think you can fully expect a deck like Sandman to make a big comeback, and therefore this deck will become worse. The other thing to mention is wave decks are big counters to Sera decks. You play Sera on 5 and then you want to unleash a bunch of points on the final turn. And what is the second best deck? Well, the third and fourth best deck, according to the data so far, it is wave decks. So we're going to start off looking at Doomwave. We also have Deathwave to look at. This version is not the optimal version, in my opinion, although it's pretty nice. This is my favorite version of Doomwave that I was playing in the past couple days. This list was using Lizard. I think Lizard is the most cuttable card with Lizard's nerf. Lizard is a interesting nerf because it's still going to be good in a lot of decks. It's going to be good if you're playing Killmonger and Sera. It's going to be good if you're playing Storm, but it's going to be less good in these kinds of mid-range decks. However, with a Goose and with a Wave, you can probably get away with the Lizard still. This deck is just all about mid-range value. You're looking to play Wave on turn number 5, and then on turn 6, you're looking to play Doctor Doom and She-Hulk, or perhaps Darkhawk and She-Hulk, or if you really have to, Chavez and She-Hulk. It's really not that bad. We have cards like Iceman for that early value, Lizard and Mr. Fantastic doing similar things, and then we also slot in the Darkhawk package with Zabu, with the Korg, with the Rock Slide as well. The Goose is phenomenal in this one because on turn number 5, when you play the Wave, turn 6 is going to mean everything costs 4 energy. So you're going to be completely denying your opponent playing anything into the Goose lane. whereas you can play your She-Hulk in there, and you can also, of course, get the Doombot in there as well. I think this is going to be the best version of Deathwave. It's one I've tested a lot. I know that Den also posted a very similar version on the Marvel Snap Zone meta report. The difference that he had was he had Shang-Chi instead of the Lizard. So you might also want to try Enchantress, Shang-Chi instead of the Lizard. But Enchantress maybe just has a little bit too much anti-synergy in this one with your own ongoing cards. Okay, Deathwave then is another one to look at. This is just the Deathwave list from eShock. We can see on the stats here, Deathwave has got a 54% win rate, quite popular as well, but the average cube's a little bit less than Doomwave. This version is using Enchantress. You absolutely could use Enchantress in this one as well. This is the tournament winning deck though. The Shang-Chi is in here. I think Shang-Chi is the card that you could consider most cutting for Enchantress. The Aero you definitely want because Wave and Aero just have a lot of synergy together. On turn number 6 you can play your Aero and She-Hulk. That's also a consideration to add into this one is an Aero. You just don't want too much top end in this one. It's really important to have that early game presence. So it's a really nice deck. I wouldn't expect this deck to be getting worse come Tuesday because Tuesday is going to be another shakeup of the meta with the entrance of Nebula, who I have a video coming soon on. And Armor and Nebula is going to be a very popular combo, and therefore Deathwave is going to be significantly worse. So I would predict that Doomwave is going to be the better way to play this archetype come Tuesday, but maybe for the moment Deathwave just edges it perhaps, although the stats are very tight on these two decks. Okay, up next, and actually in second place, we have Sera Surfer. Now, I hate that this deck is called Sera Surfer, because as I'm sure many of you that watch my channel frequently will know, I don't like playing Sera in Silver Surfer decks, and there's a couple reasons. Well, one is it's bad against Wave, which is looking quite popular, but also I just love playing Goose on turn 5. So let's look at the list. This is actually very close to the list that I would suggest. Again, I just don't play Sera. I also don't like the Nova particularly, but pretty much every other card I do play. So the key differences in my one is I'm playing Jeff in the 2 costs slot. If you don't have Jeff, don't panic, you can play Cloak in here instead. Cloak is just 4 stats on turn 2, and it's also got some interesting Kingpin synergy. Cloak is what I was using in this deck for a very long time. And then the other thing is Kingpin comes in instead of the Sera. Kingpin just gives you that really nice control on turn 6. Just be careful not to move your Jeff in there, which I actually did do and lost a tournament because of it. Oops, not ideal. I think Silver Surfer is really solid. It's obviously going to be worse when there's more Sandman decks, but it actually has a surprisingly good Sandman matchup, as you might have seen on my video yesterday, and it's good against Patriot if Patriot makes a big comeback, when Enchantress becomes gradually less popular. Of course, on patch day, Enchantress is going to be the most popular that it ever will be, and just this control archetype with Storm, Killmonger, the Rogue is still really bloody good as well, although Rogue could end up getting cut if Enchantress is so strong that ongoing cards become significantly less popular. And of course you can just slot in any 3-drop like a Mr. Fantastic in there as well. And yeah, just to touch on why I don't like Sera a little bit more is because on turn 5 I just want to play a 3-drop and a 2-drop. I don't want to play Sera and then 3-drops on turn 6. I'd rather just play 2 3-drops on turn 6, a 3-drop and a 2-drop on turn 5, because then instead of playing Sera, you're playing a 2-drop on 5, which is actually pretty significant. A card like Goose on turn 5 is absolutely phenomenal against so many decks. Goose on turn 2, your opponent can just prepare the whole game. Goose on turn 5 can really catch them off guard, and they're super limited in where they can play their Doctor Doom, for example, and then you've got the option of juggernauting that into the Kingpin, or perhaps Cosmoing it as well. So I absolutely love this version of the deck. Would strongly recommend you play it. And again, if you don't have Jeff, you can absolutely still play this one. Also, Rogue could end up going for something like Mr. Fantastic if Enchantress is keeping ongoing cards out of the meta, which I doubt will be the case, to be honest. Finally, we have up doing quite well. I'm not going to look at Hela because we all know Hela's not a real deck. We have a Jeff the Baby Landshark mid-range kind of deck. This one is using Stature and Black Bolt. I'm not a Stature owner. This deck does look very solid, but I have a similar version if you do have Jeff but you don't have Stature like me. This deck was built by my friend Moyen. This was actually built pre-patch, pre-Enchantress buff when he was already playing the Enchantress. I do have a video coming out on this one. The big synergies in here are with Angela, Jeff, and Nightcrawler. This is an idea I proposed to him. back before he played in this tournament. You've also then got Miles, which becomes very cheap with the Nightcrawler and Jeff. Of course, you can move Nightcrawler and Jeff out of the Angela lane to get a lot of Angela buffs, and then Polaris is another way of setting up your Miles. You have a little bit of clog in here with cards like Green Goblin, Titania, and Polaris to try and fill your opponent's lane. Green Goblin also has that nice Angela synergy as well. And with Daredevil, you can clog your opponent on turn number 5 to lock them out of a location. Professor X also just does very well into a lot of the current decks. Decks like Sera are playing very slow, of course, on turn number 5. And also it's good against Sandman if Sandman makes a comeback. Leader then is your way of just getting ahead on turn 6. If you're already ahead, and you know what kind of deck your opponent's playing, you're only expecting them to play one big chunky card. Leader is your finishing play. This deck can struggle though if your opponent is playing a deck which wants to slam a bunch of cards on the last turn and they don't have maybe many ongoing cards for your Enchantress. But I had a pretty good win rate with the deck. I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely also interested in checking out the stature version of the deck, which looks amazing. I just unfortunately don't own stature. So we can take a bit of a look at the rest of the decks in the meta report there. All the decks I've got to share with you, what I believe are going to be the top decks for the start of the season. But Dark Hawk is looking still pretty strong despite the amount of Enchantresses. This deck looks absolutely perfect to me. I wouldn't change anything. We've also got Galactus, which I don't want to comment on too much, as you can see, I don't own Galactus. This list looks pretty much bang on what I would play. I think maybe Wolverine I wouldn't play because it makes it too obvious, but Wolverine's also solid enough, so I don't really have any issue with that. Discard, also with Wolverine, right? You don't want initiative, particularly with the amount of Enchantresses hitting your null potentially. So Wolverine would go for me just for something like Lizard or Sunspot maybe, just something that's going to feed your null a little bit more, I think would make a decent amount of sense. Maybe a Cloak as well. Cloak can feed your null quite well, but then also give you some surprise value. Discard is actually performing quite well. I don't rate Discard personally. I did post my favorite Discard deck a couple days back. I think Storm is not particularly good in these decks either if Electro makes a big comeback because of all the Dooms. Also Doomwave, they're often going to be beating you in your Storm lane, which is a problem. Some kind of Hit Monkey deck. This is just like a Hit Monkey. This is actually Dera's deck, it looks like. So as you can see, overall, not everyone's had as much success with Dera, which I have to say 80% win rate seems obscenely high to me, but Dera is of course a fantastic player and people that are net decking him maybe not quite as good as him, but I am surprised at just how high this win rate is. If I had to bet on which deck would be better, I would actually lean still towards Bast, just about, but I think it's a tight one, and I love that there's two options. Patriot really struggling on day one with a 5.9% popularity, but the fact that it's done so well with how popular Enchantress is going to be on patch day just shows you that Patriot is still a very serious deck in the meta. Also a couple Thanos decks doing okay. Thanos Death not looking too hot, but down here in like the decks which don't have enough games played to be featured on the meta report, you can see Thanos Zoo also looking pretty strong at 54% win rate, but only 1% popularity. So Thanos, Shuri also looking like a pretty serious deck. I think Nebula is also going to be a really nice card in Shuri because you're already wanting to play armor, and I do again have that Nebula video coming a little bit later. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video where we look at the data from the first 12 hours, but also just tried to show you a few more of my refined ideas and just spewed information at you and my thoughts on the meta in 15 minutes or so. I hope you enjoyed it. What do I expect the meta to settle down with? Well, I actually expect Surfer and Doomwave to be two very, very serious decks. I think Sera Control is, of course, going to be a top deck, and I think that Sandman is therefore going to make its way back up the ranks. It only lost 2 points, and it was very strong. If Sera Control keeps playing Enchantress, Patriot is going to be less popular. That's another matchup which Electro Sandman was struggling in. So I actually think the meta is looking like it's in a really healthy and interesting position. And I'm very excited for the future of these over-the-air balance changes, which we're getting every week. And on Tuesday, the meta will be shaken up yet again with 2 new cards. Kitty Pryde makes a return, and moreover, Nebula, the Battle Pass card, which looks absolutely bonkers. So a video coming on that a little bit later today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like and subscribe for more. See you soon, and bye. 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 Deuces.